And we continue at 1:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in New Mexico.
John, it is election season. Prop 50 is on the ballot. It's the only thing that's on the ballot in most counties. And as of yesterday, of the 23 million ballots that were sent out, 897,000 have been returned. It is a return rate of 3.9%.
As Jim Lacey said, turnout is going to be very, very low in this election.
Currently, it's 4% of Democrats, 4% of Republicans, and those no party preferencers at 3%.
How's Imperial County doing?
You know what? I can't seem to find the button where it lets me search for all the counties again. I need to look that up, but I'm sure it's low. Not as low as Alameda County, but low.
Do we have Bianco?
No, we don't.
This is the second time he's done this, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You know, it's an uphill climb for any Republican to win statewide office in California. It's real tough if you don't show up when you're supposed to show up and you're booked and you confirm. I think we're done with him.
You cursed yourself by promoting it.
Yeah. People always email, why don't you ever have Chad Bianco? We try, we book him, and he doesn't show up. It is what it is. We're moving on.
Well, guess what, Johnny? The good news is we still have tons of Katie Porter sound to play.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. So near the beginning of the interview, one of the questions that Nikki Lorenzo asked was specifically about Katie Porter screaming at the staffer.
Get out of my shop.
Because that was a Zoom call with Jennifer Granholm, the former Secretary of Energy. And apparently Katie Porter was pissed off that at that point she had never been invited to the White House.
It was also reported.
This was with Nikki Lorenzo of Fox 40 and Inside California Politics.
It was also reported that in that video, then Secretary Jennifer Granholm was on the other end of it. And you were quoted in reports saying, despite raising a lot of money for the Democratic Party, quote, I don't fit the photo op for some reason, meaning you haven't been invited to the White House. What did you mean by that?
I, at that time, had not been invited to the White House. I was after that.
You notice how she gets into the little girl voice when she's talking about something that she did that was petty?
I, at that time, had not been invited to the White House. I was after that. She was asking me what my engagement had been with President Biden. And so I was telling her I had not been invited to that point. But look, it's a huge House of Representatives. And so...
No, she was pissed.
Was the allegation that she was making that she was too fat to go to the White House?
I don't know.
If she doesn't look the right part for the photo op, what the hell does that mean?
And so everybody waits their turn and takes their turn and gets a chance. I was so proud to host President Biden when he came to Orange County to talk about the passion that we both have and have in common.
Does Biden have a problem with junk in the trunk?
Maybe he does. I don't know. He's a pretty fit guy for an 80-something-year-old.
When he came to Orange County to talk about the passion that we both have and have in common for bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. And so I appreciated all of the conversations and opportunities that I've had to engage with him.
She has the biggest chip on her shoulder on planet Earth. She was furious because she wasn't being invited to the social events at the White House, and that's why she was pissed off and cursing.
It sounded like you felt like it was personal. Did you feel like it was personal at one point?
I have a really good personal relationship with President Biden, and I'm really proud.
I don't think he knows who you are.
I don't think he could pick her out in a police lineup.
Although, to be fair, I don't think he knows who he is anymore.
That's true.
I have a really good personal relationship with President Biden, and I'm really proud to have worked hard to put his agenda forward. I think people can see in this moment of Trump attacking us, peeling back our projects in California for green energy, attacking our federal research funding, driving up costs, tariffs that are hurting small businesses. I think people can see that President Biden was really focusing on them and on their families and understood, like I do, what it's like to try to have to feed your family, what it's like to push a shopping cart.
There it is. You knew the grocery store was going to be in there.
She can't talk for an extended period of time without referencing food.
Push a shopping cart. That's what Californians are thinking about and want a governor who's going to tackle those challenges head on.
So she's petty, she's violent, she's angry, and she thinks she's being discriminated against and excluded from parties because she's fat.
Here's a fun part of the interview where Nikki Lorenzo plays a clip of a Democrat strategist talking with Mark Halperin about how mean Katie Porter is, and Katie Porter has to respond to it.
So your Democratic opponents have tried to characterize.
By the way, Nikki Lorenzo must have loved it to know that, like, I could throw whatever I want at her, and she's going to have to do whatever I say because she doesn't want another moment.
Oh, no, she can't storm out of the room this time.
So your Democratic opponents have tried to characterize this as a pattern. It's not just them. It's also other folks in the Democratic Party. There was a clip, we're going to play it for you. Longtime Democratic strategist Dan Turrentine on his show on the Two-Way app.
Boy, everybody's got a show now.
Hey, Mark Halperin show's great. I watch that all the time.
Yeah, I'm subscribed to it on YouTube.
Had this to say. We're going to play it for you and then have you react on the other side.
It's who Katie Porter is. I spent a lot of time around that office. For those who don't know, she went to Harvard Law School. Elizabeth Warren was one of her professors. She considered herself kind of an acolyte of Elizabeth Warren. She is condescending and patronizing. She absolutely believes that she is right. You are wrong. She's smarter than you. It comes across. So, you have to start with, Mark, the fact that, like, you have to sit and ask questions and have respect for the person who's asking you questions. She doesn't respect Trump voters, and she didn't respect those type of questions. You just can't talk to people like that. And that is Katie Porter's problem. It's why so many people dislike her.
Wow.
Wow, this reporter's just bringing it right to her. I love it. Your
response to that?
I'm working hard to make sure that Californians know what kind of governor I'm going to be. A governor who's going to fight.
This is so overly prepared and so overly rehearsed. It does not come across. You can say a lot of things about that interview she did with Julie Watts. She came off as the authentic Katie Porter. Nobody's buying this act.
No, but she can't be authentic because if she's authentic, everyone would hate her more than they already do. She's got to come out with the phony canned response because that's the only thing that's acceptable.
I'm working hard to make sure that Californians know what kind of governor I'm going to be. A governor who's going to fight. My style may not be as soft as some people's. I understand that. People who know me know I can be tough. But we are in a tough moment. The consequences for Californians right now, for ordinary families, are real, and I'm hearing about those. So I'm going to make sure that we're pushing, that we're fighting back.
Are we 100% certain she didn't take a Benadryl before this interview?
Maybe she did. Maybe a Xanax. Maybe someone shot her with a... Maybe someone shot her with a tranquilizer gun.
I'm not going to be someone who's going to bend to kind of curry political favor when I don't think it's in line with California's values. So,
by the way, that's racist now.
What's racist?
Curry favor.
Oh.
To kind of curry political favor when I don't think it's in line with California's values. So I've had a track record of talking to and winning Republicans and campaigning in Republican territory. I want to win the vote of every Californian I can.
You literally said you didn't want to do that.
But am I going to sell out California's values?
This isn't selling out California's values. This is calling your character and how you treat people into question.
Well, as I've said, Nikki, I know, I've watched those videos, and I absolutely understand that I could have done better.
There it is again.
That is the line, and she is sticking to it. It's like when you listen to a criminal defendant who has been coached by their attorneys. You can't say certain things, otherwise you're going to be found guilty. So this is the line, and you just have to stick with it. That's what she sounds like.
I'm willing to hold myself to account for that.
What does that mean?
She is seething with rage that's under the surface. After she finished with this interview where she has to behave, what do you think the odds are she broke every glass in the room when she got back to her hotel room?
All right, here we go. Let's hear Nikki Lorenzo ask Katie Porter, do you think there are any more videos that we're going to see in the future?
Should California voters feel confident that there aren't any more Katie Porter videos out there?
Well, what I know is that I could have done better in those.
There it is again.
The answer is yes.
If she's not saying that there are no more videos, she knows that there's a potential for more videos because she was that way to her staffers for years and years and years.
If you were to ask me, are there any videos out there of you cursing out the people who work on the show? I could answer that question easily and honestly. No, you will not find a video of me cursing out people who work on this show. It's an easy question to answer if you're not a bipolar lunatic. But she's a bipolar lunatic, so I'm sure there's a million videos.
Well, what I know is that I could have done better in those moments. I'm going to be focused on earning their votes and earning their trust. That's true in every election. I've only ever had tough elections. So I'm absolutely aware that I'm going to have to continue to show them. I'm going to have to answer every question. I'm glad I got to continue that interview and finish that interview and answer all her questions. And that's what I'm going to continue to do.
I can't wait to see the rest of that interview.
Yeah, no kidding.
Show Californians not only that I understand their problems, but that I have the will and the strength of character to actually get something done about them.
But not just the CBS interview, the interview with the staffer. Can voters be confident that there won't be another one of those videos that's going to come to light?
What I do know is that I could have done better in that situation.
But that's not a no. So is there potentially...
All right, how many of her opponents right now are ponying up money to pay these staffers to leak as much information as possible?
I don't think you have to pay them. I think they all hate her with the hot, hot hate of 1,000 suns. And individually, they're deciding when to release the videos. Because if you hate her that much, you want to release them when they'll do the maximum amount of damage. Someone clearly understood that releasing that video after she snapped at the reporter would do damage to her. If you sit on the video at this point, or if she came out and said, no, none of those videos, you'll see no more of those videos, then you release another one. Because she gave the nebulous answer that basically said, yes, there will be more videos, you don't release it now. You wait until you get closer to the election, and then you release it again. Or you just drip, 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 drip them out, so it's the only thing she ever gets asked about.
What I do know is that I could have done better in that situation.
But that's not a no.
There is again.
Someone needs to ask her about that. You have a canned answer. You're repeating it over and over and over again. No one's buying it. What's the real answer? What's the truth?
What I do know is that I could have done better in that situation.
But that's not a no. So is there potentially another video that we're going to see?
Nikki, I'm going to be honest with you. I know.
Wait, were you not being honest before?
Yeah, that's always a tell when someone says that.
I'm going to be honest with you. I know that video, and that video was several years ago, as you know, and I apologize to the staffer. That's super important to me, and will continue to try to hold myself to do better. That's what I can promise.
But not that there's not going to be any more videos, because that's what people are wondering. Are we going to see something else like that?
I can tell you what I've told you, which is that I am taking responsibility for this situation.
How exactly?
Yeah, that's unclear. Maybe because she's agreeing to these interviews that have turned into public floggings, that she's taking responsibility. But I think this is what it's going to be from here on out. How can you interview her and not ask her about the explosions?
Well, and specifically because of what happened in the original interview with Julie Watts when she said this.
Well, to those voters. Okay, so you...
I don't want to keep doing this. I'm going to call it. Okay. Thank you.
You're not going to do the interview with us?
Nope, not like this. I'm not. Not with 7 follow-ups to every single question you ask.
I believe anyone who will be interviewing her in the future, and we're seeing it with Nikki Lorenzo, don't feel afraid. Ask as many follow-up questions as you can, because she's either going to have to finally answer something or the ticking time bomb is going to go off.
Well, you know that's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
And I'm also not going to back down for fighting back for California, from being tough. I don't think this is a moment where the same old is going to cut it. But that doesn't change the fact that what I did to that staffer was wrong. I've acknowledged it to her in that moment, and I'm acknowledging it now.
All right, when do you think the COVID staffer is coming out?
Well, that person has already told their story to print reporters, but they haven't gone on camera themselves and told the story. But I'm sure that's coming.
When we come back, Johnny, we're going to hear Katie Porter refuse to answer a very simple question. If she is going to try to use the same strategy that Adam Schiff used against her to get elected senator, she gets asked over and over and over again and will not answer the question.
For someone who is supposed to be a shoot from the hip, tell it like it is kind of candidate, boy, she doesn't like to answer questions. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Will writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. You know Katie Porter was about to blow a vessel during this interview. You know she wanted to throw a pot of mashed potatoes at Nikki Lorenzo.
Well, what she ended up doing was throwing a pot of potatoes on her own campaign.
I don't think this interview has helped her one bit.
No, but it is what it is. That's who she is. You can't give her a personality transplant at this stage in her life. You can't tell her you can't behave like that. You have to behave in a more respectful way to the people around you. And by the way, this is what made her popular. What made her popular was berating bank executives and corporate executives that testified in front of Congress with the whiteboard. And everyone thought, oh, well, she's just nasty to those people, so she's our hero. And as it turns out, no, she's not just nasty to those people. She's nasty to everyone. She uses a whiteboard with the kids.
She might as well just lean into it.
Get out of my shop.
Steer into the skid. This is who I am. I'm a raging you-know-what.
Well, she should do that because that's the honest answer. And in the old days, that's what they used to do. Leona Helmsley never claimed to be warm and fuzzy. They went after her as a rich elitist witch, and she essentially said, yeah, that's who I am. What's it to you? But for whatever reason, Katie looks in the mirror and sees every woman. She sees every chick in the grocery store counting coupons. And that's not who she is. Because those women aren't monsters. Well, most of them. It's the John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. And Randy, now that we've crossed the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is search for the John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcasts app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You could download all the episodes. You could do a Google on the YouTube. Get the free KABC app. Get the free KSFO app. Get the KMJ Now app. We do a show Saturdays at 2 in the Central Valley on that station. So many different ways to listen live to these radio stations and download all the podcasts. Like, let's say you wanted to hear an interview with Chad Bianco. You're going to have to go back to the interview from August because he boned us.
And you won't be hearing him on this program in the future either. All right, let's go back to the Katie Porter interview.
Katie Porter gets asked over and over and over again if she's going to do the thing that screwed her out of being in the top 2 against Adam Schiff in the Senate race. You know what she calls it?
I call it the Schiff gift.
Let's hear what Nikki Lorenzo had to say here.
So I want to go back to the CBS interview, because during that interview, you were asked a question about potentially needing Republicans. And if you were to face another Democrat, potentially needing them, and your response was, quote, "I don't intend that to be the case." So are you planning to use the same strategy that Adam Schiff used in the Senate race, elevating Republican Steve Garvey, spending a bunch of money, elevating his name ID in ads, which boxed you out of that race?
Well, my goal...
Which, by the way, then she also did when she started spending money on Eric Early.
She did. She just didn't do it as well as Adam Schiff.
Well, my goal is going to be to win all the votes that I can. I think we're, quite a ways out. We're coming up on our November election for a year from now. So I think my goal is going to be to continue to communicate with Californians, to show them that they can trust my leadership in this moment, that I'm ready to fight for them, that I understand what's at stake for their families.
That's a whole lot of words that aren't answering the question.
I understand how much groceries cost because I'm the one that pushes the cart.
Here we go.
We're back to that.
I understand how much groceries cost because I'm the one that pushes the cart. And I think that people want that level of fight, that level of understanding that we need to push hard on our challenge.
What do you think Katie Porter does when she's at the grocery store with the grocery cart and the line is taking forever to move because the woman in front of her is on WIC?
Well, I believe her on this one. Didn't we have a listener who lives in Irvine say that they run into her at the 7-Eleven where she's getting her Slurpees?
Of a fight, that level of understanding that we need to push hard on our problems or they're not going to go away.
But can you commit now that you're not going to use that same strategy because you didn't like it?
Good on Nikki. Just straight up ask the question again.
But can you commit now that you're not going to use that same strategy because you didn't like it? You called it the strategy rigged. You were very upset. And I talked to you after the Senate race that it was fair in terms of there was nothing illegal about it, but that Adam Schiff did boost Steve Garvey. It was widely reported. Are you committed to not using that strategy?
My goal is going to be to win all the votes I can.
Not answering the question.
No, she's not. Not even coming close.
Are you committed to not using that strategy?
My goal is going to be to win all the votes I can. And as I said in that interview, in the CBS interview, as I said then in that clip, I'm the person in this race who has a track record of being able to win over Republican voters, of communicating with them, of going into deep Republican areas.
You literally said, I don't need any of them.
And it enraged you to the point to where you wanted to end the interview.
And then she called Julie Watts ma'am.
And Julie Watts is younger than her, for the record.
Of communicating with them, of going into deep Republican areas.
I mean, your old district was
That's
purple.
absolutely Huntington Beach,
Right.
many of those areas, Anaheim Hills, many parts of Orange County still are deeply purple. And so I've had the track record year after year after year in this very polarized Trump environment of having to have town halls, of getting to listen to the concerns of people who maybe didn't vote for me, but still showing them through my actions.
This is a whole lot of cliched nonsense that is a filibuster because she won't answer the question.
No, and speaking of the town halls, didn't she snap at the chief of police of Irvine because she didn't like the way the police handled her boyfriend at the time, who I guess got in trouble for his behavior at one of her town halls.
Oh, I forgot about that story.
That I am going to fight for what's best for their family.
But I just want to put a button on this because this has been discussed.
All right, good on Nikki. Asking the question again. Let's just keep this interview going on for an hour.
Will
She's
you deploy
great.
that strategy?
It is not. I cannot tell you what the future is going to hold, but I can tell you I'm moving forward with the campaign. I had events yesterday with Napa Valley County Dems. I had an event earlier today with the labor union. I have two more events tonight. And so I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing now since getting into the race in March, which is getting out there, showing Californians who I am. And
I think you just showed Californians who you are. You will not be honest.
Oh, we're well aware.
Showing Californians who I am and why I'm the person who can help California move forward and take on Trump.
How hard would it be to say, of course I'm going to use that strategy? It works.
I don't know what the reason is for her trying to, I guess, downplay her ambition or her cutthroat impulses to win the election. The correct answer is she's willing to do literally anything to win. So if that's what's required, that's what she will do. But she's smart enough to know that's a bad look, especially after the last two videos dropped. So she can't say that. So you need to have these long, meandering answers that don't get anywhere close to the question.
And I think this is one of her biggest problems. And it's a reason that we play these full interviews and take the time on this show. It doesn't even matter what the subject matter is. You can tell a lot about a person by the fact if they answer questions directly or not. And she does not. We've heard what it sounds like when she does directly answer questions and she gets mad.
I'm running for governor because I'm a leader.
That's the real Katie.
All right, finally, what has Katie Porter learned from this experience?
What have you learned through all of this these past couple of weeks?
Yeah, well, as I've said, I could do better. And
There it is again.
How many times do you think she said that over the course of this interview?
At least 10. And it was only a 13-minute interview.
Yeah, well, as I've said, I could do better. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, to do that self-reflection, to show Californians that you're the kind of person who can acknowledge that, and that you're going to commit to trying to do a better job. My staff really matter to me. And I need to be better at showing that, not sometimes, all the time. And I think that's something I've worked on over the years. That's something I'm going to continue to work on. And I think that I'm being really honest with voters, that I'm going to keep fighting for them because I know what's at stake for California in this race.
Congresswoman Porter, thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. That was Katie Porter's 13-minute interview last night with Nikki Lorenzo of Fox 40 and Inside California Politics.
And the takeaway is she's not dropping out of the race. It's the John Phillips Show. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Well, Katie Porter is not the only Democrat running for governor here in California. A bunch of others are, many of whom have no chance. One of them is the former controller for the state of California, Betty Yee, who is coming down on Katie Porter like a ton of bricks, saying that she should drop out of the race. Well, she just did a sit-down interview with Piers Morgan, and as it turns out, she's no better than Katie Porter.
Let's hear this interview that aired last night.
Out of interest, Betty Yee, what is your view of trans athletes in women's sport?
Well, I think I always want to be sure that we are being inclusive in sports. And so I think there are ways to still have them participate in sports and try to quell, just some of the controversy around it. I think everyone has an opportunity to participate in sports.
Right.
So what is her stance?
Well, I think the takeaway from that particular statement is trans athletes should have a right to compete. Well, I don't think anyone's disputing that. The question is, should they compete against biological men or women?
Right. That wasn't really the question. It's whether you think trans athletes should compete in women's sport.
Well, I think we need to learn more about just how we can enable them to participate. I don't look. Everyone is competing in a sport, and they come with abilities, and perhaps there could be kind of a different league for them, or we can look at just ways not to exclude them.
We're gonna have the Trans League.
Now, I'd buy tickets for that. I have no interest in men's track and field or women's track and field, but if they had a trans track and field, I would be there for that.
Ways not to exclude them, but I do want them to be able to have that same opportunity to participate.
Well, everybody wants trans athletes to be able to participate in sport. The issue is whether they should be allowed to compete in women's sport against actual women who are biological females who obviously have a inferior physiology in the main in terms of lung capacity, muscle mass, and so on. Do you think that would be right?
They are now part of, they have been through a transition, a physical transition, and I do believe that they should be able to participate with other female athletes.
Wow. Well, you've got the Olympics coming to California, to LA. So are you suggesting that you would allow trans athletes to compete in women's sport in the Olympics if you were governor?
Well, I think there's still a lot of discussion that needs to happen. I think there's a lot of information we need to learn about what's really happening with the ability of trans athletes to compete. But my statement is about being able to be sure that they can compete. And right now,
my question is whether you think they should compete in women's sport in the Olympics, because it's coming to LA, so it's relevant.
I think transgender female athletes are women athletes, and they should be able to compete.
Really?
He went up a pitch.
He did, because I don't think he was expecting that answer.
And they should be able to compete.
Really? So if you were governor of California, you would support biological males who identify as women competing in women's sport in the Olympics?
They are now identified as transgender female.
And you think and you think it's fair that they should then compete in women's sport?
I think they should be able to compete in women's sports, but I also think that there is still some discussion about whether they should compete in the same field. But I just want them to be able to participate.
Sure, I'm sure you do. Why, out of interest, why do you think we separate the sexes in the Olympics?
Well, because they do come with different attributes in terms of physicality. And
so you accept that we separate the sexes because men have a physical advantage over women?
I know about an advantage in some sports, yes. In other sports, maybe not.
Can you think of a single sport in the Olympics?
Whoa. She thinks that there are sports out there where women have a biological and physiological advantage over men. What sports would those be? Basketball? You could take whatever WNBA team you want, and you can put them up against a Division III men's basketball team, and that game would be over halfway through the first period. It would be over. How about, soccer? Didn't that Megan woman, whose name I can't pronounce the last name, otherwise I will get canceled. What's her name?
Megan Rapinoe.
That's right. Didn't they go up against a boys' high school soccer team and they got their clocks cleaned? Is she really expecting us to believe this?
I think she thought she was just going to get to talk about Katie Porter in this interview, and now she's just kind of lost in the mist.
And now she's saying, oh, yeah, there's a difference between men and women. Women have a physical advantage over men in athletics.
Can you think of a single sport in the Olympics where men would not have an advantage over women, with the exception potentially of archery?
I think you can see female athletes where, particularly in track and field, where agility is probably...
Hang on, are you suggesting that...
He went up an octave again.
Track and field? I can't believe she's going on TV saying this.
Hang on, are you suggesting that women... So hang on. You think that women could compete against men in track and field, like in 100 meters, 200 meters, 10,000 meters, do you?
Perhaps. I'm not a sports expert.
Of course they couldn't. Have you seen the times that women and men record in the Olympics for all track and field events? Have you watched Usain Bolt when he smashed the world record for the 100 meters?
Yes.
So you think women could run against Usain Bolt, for example, at his peak, and that would be fair?
I think, look, I'm just going to say this. There's a lot of misinformation about the ability of transgender athletes.
That wasn't my question. My question was, you've got the Olympics coming to your state. Yes. You want to be the California governor. I am actually a resident in California, in Los Angeles. I'm very curious about your response to how you would want the Olympics to be conducted, which would be fair and equitable for women. But it seems to me like you would like to remove any sexual differentiation between the Olympic sports and let them all compete. It would be gender neutral, would it, if you were governor?
Well, I want to be sure that everyone has the ability to compete.
Right, but would you have a gender neutral? If you had athletics as gender neutral, women wouldn't get to do anything. Okay, who wants to play basketball? Okay, we got boys who are 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". Then we have a bunch of women who are 5'3". Okay, let's all compete. Let's see who's going to make it on the team. That's what would happen. That's the whole point of Title IX, so that women can do it too. If all of a sudden you eliminate sex differences and you just tell everyone to compete for the same teams, that means no athletics for women.
Right, but would you have a gender neutral Olympics where you wouldn't have male and female sport then? You just have one that everyone could join in.
Well, I don't think we're going to get that tomorrow, but I think it's a conversation worth having.
We don't pay attention to these people, but they're just as nuts as Katie Porter and the rest of them.
You think it's a conversation worth having where you have gender neutral Olympics?
Because we need to understand what the attributes are of athletes across the spectrum.
But you've already said that you understand the reason they separate the sexes is that men have a physical advantage over women. That is why we separate the sexes in the Olympics.
In some sports, I believe so.
Tell me a sport where it would have no impact.
I do believe that women are equipped to break records in track and field, and some
Tell
other
me
sports
one
as
track
well.
and field event where a woman would beat a man in the Olympics.
Well, if
in fact, let me make it easier. Tell me a single track and field event in the Olympics where a woman would qualify for any of the finals.
Well, I would think that in some of the in the short course, track events. Potentially.
What do you mean? Like how long?
It's not going to be the long.
You know what she can't do here? She can't end the interview because she was going on to criticize Katie Porter.
Yes, but she is stuck in a cul-de-sac and she cannot get out, and she's arguing an indefensible position.
Well, we've got about 3 more minutes of this one, so we'll get to it right after the top of the hour.
All right, it's the John Phillips Show. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Betty Yee. 3 more uncomfortable minutes of her up next, right here on the John Phillips Show.